I will be talking about a weird case, bodies without matters. So I'm really glad that Julia was talking about some of this last time or in the morning, because so do you still see this, or did I?
We see it perfectly.
Yeah, okay. I just, sorry, I did not prepare it on this. Okay, let's just go to presentation. Okay, so so I'm grateful to Julia because she pointed to some interesting facts that can be examples or counterexamples with equating bodies with matter, and what I'm going to present now is another one of those. And so, well, I wanted to draw something on here, but since I don't have my drawer because the screen sharing didn't work, what I would have drawn here is basically what happens if you're an Aristotelian when something is generated. So you may have, I don't know, like a seed here, and then a flower is generated from it. And of course, there is a point where the seed ceases to exist and the flower comes to be. And what happens if you're an Aristotelian in this case is that there is something underlying, some underlying substrate that we call matter that is sort of constant throughout this whole change. And so this is the main, well, at least one of the main reasons why Aristotelians posit matter, sort of to account for what this underlying thing is in substantial generation and corruption. So now if we look at the Aristotelian cosmos, what we see, and again, I can't really draw, but maybe I can use my little. So this is the Aristotelian cosmos. We have the Earth in the middle, and as Nicola already sort of explained this, which is nice because then I don't have to, things under the moon and things below the, or things above the moon behave quite differently. So things under the moon move usually in a straight line, either up or down, at least according to Aristotle, at least that's their natural motion. So we are talking about how bodies move sort of by themselves or naturally. And celestial bodies move circularly. But what's more important here for my purposes is that here things are generated and corrupted, but things in the heavens aren't. And Aristotle and all medieval thinkers accepted this position, and basically they had pretty good empirical reasons to do so. So they consulted all kinds of records about, you know, stars and the moon, and they could discover no real change apart from, of course, local motion. So what's important here is that if you recall what I just said about matter, which I just talked about a few minutes ago, was that, so we posit matter because we think that that's how we account for change. We need that underlying kind of substrate. Now, if we focus on the celestial bodies, as I said, there is no change. So the question is, should we posit matter in the heavens or not? And basically there were three positions that address this question. So some people, arguably Occam, arguably Giles of Rome, thought that the same matter is in the heavens as on the earth, but there are some reasons. So they obviously had to explain how the celestial bodies are incorruptible. Now there were some other people who thought that, well, there is matter in the heavens, but it's a different kind of matter. That's arguably Aquinas's position. And there are all kinds of problems with both of these views. But the view I want to focus on today is the third one, namely that celestial bodies just don't have matter at all. And so the question is, well, what does this exactly mean? And why would someone endorse such a seemingly quite strange position? And so the two people I focus on today are two 14th century thinkers, roughly contemporaries of each other, Peter Auriol and John of Jandun. And so here is what they said about this question. So I'm going to read this. This is a longer quote from Auriol. The heavens are not form, because form is not in potency to its perfections. nor is it matter, because matter is in potency to the first act. Therefore, it, in the heavens, is something as if in the middle, having the nature of a subject and a conjoined essence. The heavens are a quantified body, or a quantum, I think it's in the Latin, which is not composite, namely by matter and form, neither form nor matter, but a subject that only has dimensions in its act. Just a couple of, or just one thing about the translation. So, I mean, in English, it's a little bit awkward. So what I translate as heavens is usually caelum. So it's the singular in the Latin, and also, I mean, it basically means, yes, everything that's below or that's above the sphere of the moon that I just showed on the diagram. Okay, and here's what John of Jandun says in his commentary on the De Substantia Orbis, which is a work by Averroes. The heavens, which is the fifth essence, if we sort of bracket from the mover, is not composed of matter and form, but is a simple subject, always subject to its mover, having matter not as potency to being, but as potency to location, potentia ad ubi. Okay, so these quotes are obviously pretty short and pretty cryptic. So what can we see from these about the nature of the heavenly bodies? I think we can see a few things. So we learned that the heavenly bodies are not metaphysically composite, that they are simple, but they are neither matter nor form. Actually, they are in act, so they cannot be pure matter because they are in act. And of course, matter is, if you're an Aristotelian, is potency. They also cannot be pure forms because then they would not have potency, and they do have potency. And these people also think that they can't determine their own perfections because their perfections, namely their motion, is eternal, and that cannot be given by a finite form. So we also learned that they are a simple subject. They have dimensions as their act. And we also learned that they are quantified. In other words, they have quantity or extension. So why would someone endorse a view like this? So there are a few different arguments that one can give, and I think Jandun and Auriol have slightly different argumentative strategies. So Jandun focuses on the alternative positions, and he thinks that none of them work. So here is one alternative. So for instance, consider what's arguably Aquinas' position, at least Jandun attributes it, I think, to Aquinas. So you could say that, all right, let's say that the heavens do have matter, but their forms are so perfect that they sort of satisfy all the potencies of that matter. So that means that the heavenly bodies cannot take on any other form, and so therefore they are incorruptible. Now, Jandun thinks that that doesn't work. And the main reason why it doesn't work is that not every celestial form is perfect. And that's especially true because some of them are better than others. So Jandun has this very sort of strict hierarchical view of the heavenly orbs. And I think some, and I forget which orbs he thinks are more perfect. I think the ones that move with like more uniform motion are more perfect than the others. So they cannot be all completely perfect as Aquinas would have it. Now, the other position thinks that, all right, let's say that there is some potency in the heavenly matter to take on a different form and to undergo change. But what if this potency is just never realized? And this is something like what Occam says, maybe something like what Giles of Rome says. And Jandun thinks that this violates a very basic principle, namely that there is nothing in vain. And so if we posit such a potency that is never realized, we are violating this principle of nature. Now, I think Auriol's argument is in some way more interesting, perhaps, or at least, again, it's a different strategy. So Auriol starts from the principle of parsimony. So according to the principle of parsimony, as we know, you shouldn't posit an explanation that has more objects in it or more principles, well, depending on how you flesh it out in it, than any alternative that's also sufficient. And so Auriol thinks that we can give a sufficient explanation of the phenomena without positing matter. Now, there are a couple of reasons why you think that there must be matter in the heavens. First of all, you may think that, well, obviously the heavenly bodies are bodies, so they have corporeity. But Auriol is very quick to point out that, well, corporeity itself is a form. So if you are familiar with the Porphyrian tree, I mean, corporeity is really high up there, but it's a form. So the fact that that bodies are due to form and not due to matter. Again, heavenly bodies have quantity or dimension, but for this, we don't need matter either, because the form of quantity can just inhere in the form of corporeity. And the same is true about sensible accidents. Heavenly bodies are obviously visible. For instance, they have the accident of visibility. According to some, they also have color. According to some, they don't, but that doesn't really matter. The point is that, again, sensible accidents can just inhere in either corporeity or rather in quantity, in the extended body, extended but matterless body. So this is Auriol's main argument. He also has another one from dimensions. What I want to close with here is just some consideration about celestial bodies and prime matter. So I think in some way, celestial matter and prime matter are similar because, first of all, they cannot be understood except by the form and its mover. So prime matter, as we know, and this is kind of frustrating, cannot really be positively described because it does not have much positive characteristics. And the same is true about the celestial bodies. So they are always joined to a mover. And they also do not exist apart from that mover. They do not have qualities apart from that mover, similarly as prime matter doesn't have qualities on its own. There's another analogy which is quite interesting, I think. So we infer the existence of prime matter by, as I said, by observing substantial change. And we can infer this sort of, I mean, again, Jandun calls it local matter, materia ad ubi, by observing local motion. But again, we cannot know the positive formal characteristic of either because neither of them have any. What is this similar, and I think this is quite important, is that prime matter receives its existence from the form, but celestial bodies have their own actuality. So this is important. So they are not beings in potency at all. And that also means that the union of a celestial body and the mover cannot be like the union of prime matter and substantial form, but it's more like a ship and its captain, as especially Auriol explains it. So thank you very much. I think this is it, and I'm missing a slide on this version, but that doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen here.